I didn't change my identity. I was just broke as a joke. As I'm sleeping in that truck, someone came to repossess it. And he kept trying to get me out of the vehicle. And I realized he can't hook up and tow it if you're in it. Having mentors that know the road ahead shorten your learning curve. So why pay them? Why not just get into business with them? The moment came at the convention of all conventions for this industry. We've just found out as of an hour ago, we hit 70,000. They're jumping up in that. And I'm the only guy in the whole freaking place in the back crying. How do you manage an ego of people that get paid more than you? Like, what happens when you own a business and your employees making more than you? All because they realize you've got to know what stage in the business life cycle you're in to know what strategy is most relevant.
What if you could double the size of your company in just 12 months, even if you're feeling completely stuck? Imagine transforming your business by converting leads into paying clients using a proven education-based sales model. My guest, Ted Miller III, is committed to helping entrepreneurs and business owners achieve just that. As the CEO of TM3, he has served more than 25,000 entrepreneurs from 25 different countries over the last 2 decades, generating over $100 million in business training, coaching, and consulting services. You can trust his insights as he's worked alongside titans of business like Chet Holmes and Tony Robbins. Ted understands what it feels like to hit a plateau. He once found himself stuck financially after chasing the riches and niches strategy with chiropractors, amassing 7,000 clients, but tapped out the market and failed to anticipate scalability. How did he get unstuck? What was his pivot? And how did he increase his customer lifetime value? Well, today I'm going to be asking Ted about his journey, including his $100 million secret to converting leads into paying clients with an education-based sales model. Get ready to learn the tactical and strategic methods that helped him and his clients break through their own growth plateaus. Ted, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. I love shows like this. We want to support all the entrepreneurs in the world. I think it's the greatest endeavor any human being could take on.
Before we get into you amassing 7,000 clients and plateauing, I want to rewind and go back in time to a story you teased me with. The night you slept in your car in a really nice neighborhood in front of a beautiful home you couldn't even imagine living in. Tell me what was going on at that point.
I could imagine living in it is why I stayed in front of the house. I didn't change my identity as a wealthy guy. I was just temporarily broke as a joke, man. .coms went bust. Jeremy, I had the payments that I was not making on the Dodge Ram. I'll tell you a fun story. As I'm sleeping in that truck, someone came to repossess it. And he kept trying to get me out of the vehicle. And I realized he can't hook up and tow it if you're in it. So I just drove off. And so, yeah, that's a pretty low moment. I mean, I don't care who you are. If you end up homeless and you're showering in a 24-hour fitness, that's pretty low. And, you know, I don't know if you're only speaking to established business owners or you're occasionally getting the startups, but they'll probably feel that sensation at some point where they put so much on the line. A lot of people are looking at them like they're crazy, but it paid for itself again and again and again. But I want to tell you, I did end up living in homes just like that weeks later.
Wow. Weeks later. And that's what I love is that short turnaround time. So tell me more about what changed from you seeing where you wanted to go and you actually getting there. What flipped?
Back then, because if we're talking about being broke as a joke, you know, truly having a great mentor in your corner, it sounds so trite. You know, I think trite statements are trite because they're true. They've been said again and again and again. And so we start losing like its value and its power. But I was paying all the gurus to go learn from them, but they were expensive. And then, so at that moment I paid, it was $40,000. This guy named Jay Abraham, he had I might have the cassette here actually. It was called Power Talk. It was Tony Robbins interviewing Jay Abraham, and it was 40 grand of money. I couldn't afford it solo. Couldn't afford 67 bucks for the Roach Motel. I'm not affording 40 grand. So a bunch of buddies got together and we all pitched enough cash to get the gurus to help change it. And along the way, I just realized having mentors that know the road ahead shorten your learning curve. So why pay them? Why not just get into business with them? And that's why I've had so many gurus as business partners. It just helps me refine my character, refine my skills, and ultimately we make money together instead of just, and that just came from, hey man, when I'm broke as a joke, I couldn't afford the 40K. But by the way, don't cry me a river. Like that was like the best decision I've ever made. That changed a lot for me. That was probably the motivation I needed to execute and implement on the proven business growth strategies and tactics.
Love it. So, fast forwarding a little bit, from that moment, you moved on and you're selling to chiropractors. Tell us more about the business where you're selling to chiropractors and why you chose that niche and what got you into that space.
I think I chose it because you go to a seminar to learn how to grow your business and everyone's screaming riches and niches. And they're right. There's value in niching out. I was ignorant of knowing, three core elements that are required to grow a business. I'll just allude to one, but maybe we'll speak to it a little bit later. So the first was you need to learn how to get clients. So I focused on chiropractic because they transformed not just myself, but my whole genealogy, Jeremy. And I was a little from the Midwest. I was very judgy about oh, those tree hippie weirdos. And so I had a lot of judgment around it, but it changed my life. And then I was a hard guy to get over, but now that I'm over, I'm the biggest fan of chiropractic this side of the Mississippi. So I was like, I want to give back to those that have given me so much in my life. And I got focused on what does it take to acquire new clients, and that educational based marketing, the book that you read of mine, that was that methodology that allowed me to get clients. What I didn't know harmed me, which stagnated my growth. Maybe I can allude to later, but first, how to get new clients. And I think people are looking for things to make them money. I hope people chase the thing that's closest to their heart, because when you're passionate and compassionate about a situation, that'll be enough motivation and drive to do the impossible, because statistically it's impossible to be successful as an entrepreneur. If you just get real about how many people make it, statistically it's very rare, and people don't talk about that enough. So, but if you do it because you're loving it, you're congruent, boy, I think you find what that extra juice. And so I was proud of the fact that I had 7,000 chiropractors. That's a freaking lot. There were only 70,000. The problem was it just I ran out of clients in 2 years.
So it's not a huge market. Like, what were you selling and how are you differentiating from others serving such a niche market?
Well, I couldn't differentiate enough on my own, because at that time, I was training on intellectual property and how to become a better business owner. Okay, great. You can sell a home study program, but there's no profit model in that. That was a one-time sale. As you allude to in your book, when I went through that, there were three ways to grow a business, and you're talking about increasing frequency of purchase. So I had to go find a joint venture partner, someone that was like-minded, that cared for chiropractic, that had something to bring to the table, and they had a service. So now I was able to sell one thing and bolt on this reoccurring service. So now it's $1,500 a month for as long as people are taking the service. Now I'm tapping into something that could become profitable instead of just a one-hit wonder. So back in the day, I'd yet to figure out what I was really in business for. I mean, people act like you figure things out overnight. No, it was, Chet Holmes and I were broke as a joke for years before we cracked our code and started doubling sales year after year. This was just me along the way trying to find my path. And so, yeah, I used a joint venture partnership, Jeremy.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that really, from my understanding of your story, got you from the 0 to 7,000 clients, which I know for many business owners, especially in the services space, is a huge jump. What were like some of those earlier wins that, where you saw those big jumps towards that 7,000 number?
How do you grab people's attention? Big thing. And back then it was hard. It's just more difficult now. There's so much more noise. And then you could try to pitch. Like there's the Jordan Belford Wolf of Wall Street guy. Like, what's it going to take to get the money out of your wallet? Okay, great. There are always these guys that have that thing, but it's kind of got that veneer of some kind of weird slime, and that just wasn't my nature. So my late partner Chet Holmes would say, you can get 9 times more people by offering to teach them something of value than you can by selling them anything. So when I pioneered an educational model to where the first thing I did was commit to adding value, not pitching, not selling, not anchoring down, not my lower neurolinguistic patterning to hypnotize people into doing things. No, just come on, man, just add freaking value. And they're like, that's awesome. So I just put a price tag to it. Um, and when I started selling something really small, something someone can consume in a length of a movie. Chick flicks are what, hour and 40 minutes. Same thing with dude flicks like action, hour and 40 minutes. Great movies, 2 hours, mega iconic, like, oh my gosh, 3 hours. So that's that length you can get away with during an educational experience before someone has to go pee. So in that time period, I just charged them $250 for 2.5 hours. And I found a way to crush. That really was probably the biggest movement towards the longevity that we ended up having over the next 20 years.
So what did that growth feel like? I think, we all feel these wins as we, break through different plateaus and grow. But if from where you're talking about being broke as a joke to finding a model, not overnight, but through tireless iterative testing, as you kept finding those tweaks to the model, what was that like? How'd that feel?
It felt like failure because I'm not where I want to be. I'm still digging out of a hole. So everything felt like failure because I was so focused on this outcome and I was judging. I don't know. I thought success would be this certain type of an experience. And unless I was having that experience, but I wasn't old enough, wise enough, I didn't earn enough gray hairs to recognize that those things that looked like challenges were the gifts given to me when I prayed at night. So they came to me because steel sharpens steel. It refined me at a character level. And that changed the frequency, if you want to get all esoteric about it, from which people would pick up on and go, yeah, that guy, I get that guy. That man can help this organization better execute and implement all the proven business growth strategies and tactics I've learned in my life. Yes, that please. And so it felt like failure. And over time, that meaning changed. But since you're talking specifically early, it felt like failure. It felt like, wow, are you kidding me? I got to pay this price for that?
You've probably seen this in clients you've worked with, and experienced it yourself, it sounds like. But as entrepreneurs, I find we're always looking at the mountain ahead, right? No matter what we accomplish, no matter what we get done, we've got a massive to-do list, right? We have big ideas. The goalpost keeps moving. And we so often forget to look back at how far we've come and how far up mountain we are. It's just this never-ending journey in front. So it's good from time to time to look in that rear view and acknowledge how much you've accomplished, because otherwise you do get that feeling of, I'm not there, I'll never be there.
It's like exponential curve. It kind of sucks, it kind of sucks, it kind of sucks. And then fast growth hits, 100% rate of growth in a year type of thing. Fast growth technically would be 25, maybe even just 20% based on your industry. That could be considered fast growth. When you're in fast growth, the big problem you had early, which is a cash flow conundrum, it's gone. And so now you got money, so you can solve problems by just throwing a resource called cash at things. And it's fun. So it did change, but it changed like it was based on fast growth. Like learning to acquire clients was nice. But when I found the second thing, which if you don't know three fundamentals in business, you're dying on the vine, was one is how to acquire clients, but two is how to acquire profitable clients and to have a business model that can be profitable. And so we stumbled into this coaching space because we thought we're selling intellectual property and courseware. And then we became a coaching outfit because that's what people needed. Was we need assistance on better executing and implementing. The IP was almost irrelevant. It was help me better implement. And that's where we suddenly stumbled into, which it sounds funny to say now because every Tom, Dick, and Harry's a coach right now, Jeremy. Yet at the time it was new.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. It's such a common title these days, but if you go back, there was not a whole lot of coaching out there, and the world needed it. So, all right. So you grew using one of my favorite strategies from the book, niching, right? And you grew to that 7,000 client cap. But what happened? Why did things plateau there? Could you have just worked harder, hustled more?
Oh, there's just not enough. The moment came at the convention of all conventions for this industry. It's called Parker Convention. They had thousands of chiropractors at this event. I mean, so it's mega, right? It's big. And the MC grabs the stage. He's like, hello, good morning, good afternoon. I want to congratulate you. We've just found out as of an hour ago, we hit 70,000 licensed chiropractors in the United States. Ah, and everyone's screaming and they're jumping up in the, and I'm the only guy in the whole freaking place in the back crying. And I remember Len Schwartz turned to me and he looked at me and he's like, dude, what's up? I guess 70,000 chiropractors. I go, there are only 70,000 chiropractors? It's like, yeah, but I mean, they're not all practicing. Some are doing mortgage and shit, but there are 70 are licensed at least. They went to school. And I'm like, I have 7,000 of them. I've already burned through it. So that was a defining moment. Like, they're just legitimately, no one taught me that I needed to have a scalable market. I was so self-focused about what am I saying that grab their attention? How can I add value to their world? And okay, great. I guess it needs to be profitable. Otherwise, why are we in this game? I didn't see the power of anticipation, recognizing I needed to have a scalable market. And that plateau, that's what got us out of that plateau. We turned that corner, Jeremy, for only one reason. It just was grotesquely aware that no matter how much grind, how much smarter, how much better my products could be, I'm not going to really do much more statistically, just mathematically, non-emotively. So I went back to my wife. I said, no more, never again. I said, don't you let me talk myself into some romantic notion that I could do more in this space. Don't let me buy the lie I've been selling myself for the last, it's been 2 years now in that endeavor to do this. I'm going to go back to what we said we were going to do years ago. We just didn't know how to do. We're going to do this thing. I'm going to help all entrepreneurs. And so I just went and ripped off it has to look and walk and talk like a chiropractor so I can speak in jargons to grab people's attention. I said, no, that was a skill for them. I can have a skill for everybody. And then I opened it up. That changed everything. That next year, our life changed.
What if you didn't make that change though? Had you not seen that light and just stayed the path, what would that look like?
I can't say what would happen to me if I didn't, because I'm not made of a guy, I'm just not made of failure. It's just like a total jerk to say that out loud. But like if things go sideways, you want to follow me. Like, I've come to learn that. I'm halfway through my life. Shit, it's the fan. You want to follow Ted. Like that's where you want to be. And so I'm not made of that yet. I've had 25,000 clients I personally worked with. As an organization, we had 250,000 clients, but I worked with 25,000 of them. That's a lot. I mean, that's me head down, grinding out, like working my tail off in these small group environments, listening to people. I had of those, 7,000 of them, 7,500 of them that went deeper with me and spent a business quarter with me to transform their life. And I know what they do. They take their dream of owning a business, they back it down to becoming self-employed, and they start complaining. They sound like they're handcuffed to their business and they have to, or else. And at best, owning a job, they best emotionally, and they get depressed, get frustrated. So what's funny is if they don't break free of that and they build even a bigger monster, they get handcuffed even more. There's more handcuffs, there are more limitations, and more frustrations. But that's not what they say they really, really wanted. They said they wanted freedom. They want quality time to go drop my daughter off at TCU and cry freaking all weekend with my wife about, our last baby's gone. Like they wanted that freedom, the freedom to be able to say, I'm taking my kid to one of those type of schools that, when I was a kid, there's no way in hell I was ever considering that financially. It was state school or nothing. And even then I barely afforded that. So I think it's fulfillment or absolute frustration at that point. Like if people don't find a way to get in alignment with what they truly desire and start having their actions fall in alignment with that, it just becomes a thing that, I've had business partners die. I think human beings, when they don't process their emotions appropriately, it manifests as disease and they're dead. So, sounds pretty dramatic, I'm like, make better decisions or you will die. I know I just said that out loud, but if you're old enough, you've probably seen enough of your friends do exactly that.
I want to move on to the strategy selection. But before we do, sort of quick question on what we're talking about. So something you and I have talked about a ton, we write about, right, is a common theme for both of us and comes up a lot in your business growth playbook is how profitability is really what makes the difference, more than just chasing the gross sales. At the time, did you feel like you were chasing gross sales? Were you chasing volume, profit? Like what was the number that you guys were looking at?
KPIs, key performance indicators. So yeah, like just totally change the energy of buzzkill of saying friends dying. There is a lot for us on the back half of that, right? And you're just doing that elegantly. The pivot is to say, hey, what are you measuring? Like, so I was measuring my next client because I thought, so I need money. Where does money come? Clients. I need another client. And that only gets you so far. And it's like, oh, okay, great. I need to have profitable clients. How can I add more value to my clients where they're happy to pay on a consistent reoccurring basis? Because you can either increase frequency of purchase, increase transaction values, or get more new clients. So we're kind of like, it sounds weird to say now, talking about this in hindsight, Jeremy, because everyone's a coach. But there really wasn't. 2004, there wasn't, it's just 20 plus years ago. It wasn't that many coaches running around. And if you were called a coach, you were talking about softball. I mean, it's the only guy that was saying the word coaching outside of sports was Tony Robbins. And the only reason we called it business coaching was because my partner knew we were going to go partner with Tony Robbins. And we did. So we called it business coaching begrudgingly, but we became a coaching outfit out of just the need to add more value to our clients. So we had to learn how to recruit and train and lead 100 different coaches. Then we got into consulting space, so higher ticket. When that came into gear, that's a later time. When we shifted into that gear, then we had to hire consultants. People are smarter than us, employing people that knew way more than us. How do you manage an ego of people that get paid more than you? Like, what happens when you own a business and your employees making more than you?
You might have done something right.
Along that journey, you got a lot to learn.
So let's talk about that shift. I know for many of our listeners, they're still in the growth phase where, they think they're a business owner, but maybe they're really more on the self-employed side, right? They probably can't step away from the business for a week or a month or more. And they probably are one of the, MVPs in the company, right? They're not quite at the point you're talking about yet where they've hired that staff.
Pretty common. That's probably from 0 to 10 million. That sounds like maybe at 10 million, you got your systems, but you're probably already growing fast, 15 to 20% if you got that systems locked down. But otherwise, if you're the MVP, that sounds pretty typical. Yeah.
And that's a great place to be. And look, that's most of the businesses in America are that space, and that is perfectly okay. So be mindful. One of the things we talk about.
It's not long-term okay, because long-term, your employee, which is full of family, are you going to give them a raise every year? You're going to lie and act like you're going to pay them the same amount? So what'll happen, because that's not true. If you let your company stay the way it is over time, your expenses will increase over time. Profitability company over time will start failing. And then now the incest of family and those that or they may be employees, but you treat them like family over a long period of time. Now suddenly the person that once owned it because it was profitable is now everyone's making money but that person. And they were like, I was making more money at a small $2 million operation than I am now at 10. So warning to those that are looking at longevity over a long period of time, you can't just set it and forget it. That's not a real thing. But it feels like it in the moment because not much changes in a year or two. But we forget how fast 10 years comes and goes.
You've been through this, obviously you've helped clients as well, but when you guys got unstuck, it sounds like what I'm hearing is you cast a wider net, you expanded beyond a super narrow niche. You also moved to higher ticket offerings. And I want to hear more about that, as well as you were looking at customer lifetime value.
Well, increase frequency of purchase first, then higher ticket offerings. That was the order it went. Wider net, check one. Check two that turned it. So the first thing was, how do I acquire clients? Great. How do I do so in a scalable market? Great. Boom, we started having 100. We went from 3 million to 7 million. Then I was like, okay, how do I add more value? Coaching. We're building out a coaching firm. We're helping them over a period of time. So we're increasing the frequency in which they purchase. And that took from 7 to 14 million. And then high ticket, that's where we're really diving deep. We're now throwing people on planes, flying across countries, getting inserted into people's organizations, running their sales departments, writing their creatives, just so much moved into a little bit of like done with you and done for you services starting at 36 grand a month. That high ticket service, that took that to 34 million. So that's just 3 years we 10x'd with those three things. Throw a wider net, increase frequency of purchase, and increase transaction value. Playbooks right out of your book.
Love it. So that's so awesome. One of the things that I see, folks often challenge with, especially like when looking at the playbook, is there's a feeling of overwhelm. Like, how do I choose what to go after first? How did you guys choose of those three strategies, which to pursue first versus second versus third?
I want to say something way cooler than the truth, which is honestly, looking back on that, we would just let people figure shit out. Like we'd let superstars go do things. And if they had success, so let me say it better. We once started, it was me and this guy named Chet. And then Ted would do all things because what would happen is we were two visionaries. We came together, we fought all the time and we weren't getting shit done. And I was like, okay, we need this implementer. I guess I'll have to go put that hat on and be a different version of me just for us to succeed. Okay. And went and did that. And then Chet would say, let's go try this. Let's go try that. Let's try this. And we were broke for years. But then later, what happened is I went and found people who are smarter, skilled than I, and found ways to better lead them, manage them, motivate them. And now I got high quality, talented human beings. And we went back to all those things I tried and failed at before. And I said, hey, you want to run at this? And we give them incentives to kind of drive it. And if they were a success, that's what really, it was just like, hey, if you can make that work, we came up with compensation plans that paid them handsomely based on growth and success. And then we're like, that's got legs. Let's double down on it. And it just got more of our attention. If it was dying on the vine, we just kind of ignored it, stuck it into a corner. I mean, the only real mistake we made along the way is when we doubled down and gave a ton of energy to something that didn't deserve it. It was a constant failure. We weren't made to be great at it. None of the team members were loving it enough. Creating a software, a CRM tool, we thought that was the jam diggity. No, that just sucked us up millions of dollars, relationships. It just started breaking us because we got rid of. I'm so glad you're asking me for of this question. It's a really good question. I never really thought of it in that way. We were fundamentally setting up a model because we were still in fast growth mode and we're having lots of fun with it. If you can grow it and succeed it, we'll do it. Otherwise, let's not spread ourselves wide and only go an inch deep. It felt kind of nichey. They were all like services that kind of overlapped each other. But once we try to swing and become something we're not, it's like all those companies you're seeing failing now. They try to be something they're not. And it's like Subway. What happened to Subway, man? Well, we're here to make Subway and cookies or something. It's like, dude, it was simple. Let me come and customize a sandwich.
I'm hearing a few pieces of brilliance in there. So one thing I'm hearing is, knowing who you are as a company and making sure your decisions are based around that in alignment. Two, I'm hearing you saying empowering your team, specifically your executors and implementers, to try things. Like in fact, in your book, Workshops That Sell, you share the story about the sales team who you had a really great compensation structure for. And they came back to you and were like, hey, we want to make more money. Can we charge more? And you were like, well, let's test this. And you guys tested pricing, which I love. I love testing.
I was always slow on raising pricing. Thank God I had great team members who said, no, you could charge more. Because I was doing what there are people that are still trying to do free webinars to this day. Some do well, most are failing miserably, but if it's of value, people should be willing to pay with their time. Otherwise they just no show on you. So that came from someone's desire to want to make more money. And I just had to figure out how to make it work. And so you can't let them make a disproportionate amount of money. So I just think through it and just came up with a good plan saying, okay, great. Raise the rates to this degree. You get this much more. We get that much more. and it works out. Your clients will let you know. If you're trying to charge too much, they just won't pay you. I'll have to admit though, I'm slow at raising my rates. Last time I raised my rates for like my intro program was an assistant of mine. God bless you, Colleen. She was saying, Ted, it's just too expensive, because it was too expensive for her. I think possibly, maybe not. So she just thought is because it's too expensive, CEOs weren't paying. I said, if you say that to me one more time, I'm raising the rates to prove you wrong. I went from 200 to 250 bucks, or 220 to 250. And it was great. Like, so yeah, I hope you adjust and test pricing. Not always just for profitability, but relevance. Like when it was cheap, go all the way down to free. They didn't care. They just didn't show up. Suddenly I charged them 250 bucks and a billionaire shows up for my workshop. Like I was begging for free and I charged them and they're jumping through hoops. Jeremy, it's like some of these things, it's weird. You've got to stop and look at it and go, isn't that interesting? I don't want to be so cheeky about it, but yeah, it's a subconscious influence. Robert Cialdini's data is there for a reason.
The subconscious influence piece I think is really interesting, because we as a business owner, we see our pricing, we know what it is. We sort of get that baked in value of what it is. We forget what it looks like for someone who doesn't know us, who's never seen the business before, how they see that pricing. And while the world and the economy and everything moves on, their perceived value of us is based on the pricing we put out there, not based on what we feel it is. So it's almost always two mental blocks I see for business owners why they don't raise the prices. And once we can address those, you test out a price increase and it usually is for the better. Rarely, but once in a while, like you said, if you go too far, it's a problem. Your customers let you know.
If it goes too far, it should be probably a different service. Like, genuinely so I love Ascension sales cycles. I allow having hundreds and thousands and, tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands, baby steps, and just let your clients choose. Like that way you don't have to be selling and closing hard and being like that Wolf of Wall Street, guy. Like, just be you, add great value, and they'll start where is appropriate and they can ascend when it's relevant.
Love it. All right, let's talk implementation. You guys had a lot of really good ideas you wanted to put in place in the business. Implementing all the wrong things brings you down the wrong path. You empower the right folks and figured your decision-making framework out, which I love. So, a theme I come back to often in your business growth playbook is this idea that action drives change, right? And that great ideas that never see the light of day don't get results. So you got unstuck working with business owners, and they could afford higher ticket offerings, right? That got you higher customer lifetime value. Can you talk about like maybe a specific strategy you use when building that ladder of ascension and getting up to those $36,000 a month offerings you were talking about? Like, how did you go about implementing that?
The execution, foundationally, you've got to come up with something like your finances have to be right. You've got to, there was a lot of adjustment. We started getting partners at the time. There was what we did right and what we did wrong. So the $34 million a year, that next year was like next to nothing. Like we flat out went 3 years, 100% rate of growth, looked Tony Robbins in the eye and said, buddy, let's, sign up and do business together and we'll crush. We didn't crush, we plateaued out because we didn't learn how to do it in a scalable way. Going back to that original thing that I had to learn, not only was the market needing to be scalable, so was the service offerings. And what I was doing when we were small wasn't financially panning out at a scale at 30 million. So the $3 million model wasn't working at 30 million. So I just simply needed to adjust a skill set on how that operates. And that's transformed a lot. Countless clients have grown. I'm a big fan of Triaganipi. I love eating healthy. And there's this guy here that he makes the grains the way you would get it. I don't know if you traveled to Europe at all, but we'll go to Europe and we're eating bread and we're like, this bread's fine. We go home, we eat bread and we're having gut issues, biome problems, breaking out, and we can't figure out what it is. That guy's just got a non-GMO'd, organic things. And he was plutzing along. COVID hit. He grew fast, and he called me in fear that his company would dip in half again down to like 35 million. And he was at 60 million. And I said, no, we need to rethink this. The level you thoughts you had that got you to 30 million, and then just a random demand change that got you to 60. If we change our strategies altogether, sky's your limit. And by the way, I think they did north of 165 million last year. So radical growth. And it was great success because now there's that many more human beings eating healthy foods. AzureStandard.com, by the way, great company, all because they realize you've got to know what stage in the business life cycle you're in to know what strategy is most relevant. So you just got to have that awareness. And it's pretty simple. If you've yet to crack your $2 million mark, you better not to be talking about anything other than investing in one thing. That's you. That's your skills. So you can learn how to get new freaking clients. Like, great. You want to go to that next level? Fine. How to be profitable. Then you're investing in your team members. So that type of level of thinking to know, where do I put my investments and what am I after, is a reflection of where am I at and where do I want to go.
And for our listeners, I want to recap something really powerful Ted just shared there, right? That's, if you're looking at others and the strategies they're implementing and you're copying that, be mindful of where they're at growth wise. And if you're looking at what got you to where you are, what got you where you are now is probably not going to get you to where you want to go. So with growth comes a need for new strategies that are built for getting you from where you are to where you want to go. So thank you for touching on that.
Yeah, you bet, man. You bet.
All right. So funnels. Before we move on, talking about some of the results and impact you got with these changes, you're a funnel guy. I'm a funnel guy. There's a whole theory of constraints, TOC, for our listeners who love that stuff, approach I have to working with leaky funnels. You looked at your funnel and you saw areas that wasn't performing and you made some changes. You made some tests. I love the stories you shared with me about how when you guys were testing out like radio ads and classified ads and like the call to action changes and all that. Can you just share with our listeners a little bit about how you look at your funnels and how you improve what's not working, or maybe a story from when you did that?
Sure. One, I'm looking at things like, people call them funnels, and I look at a difference. Like, how do I add value to the clients? Meaning, when you're in love with your funnel, you're in love with your product. And the reason that probably exists for a lot of early year entrepreneurs, early years, I run the company. Then you hit fast growth, your team is running your company. But if you hit maturity, your systems are being ran by your team. And there's also aging, which is your policies dictating your direction of your company, and that's you're heading towards death. So that's the basic arc. And so you just got to know where you're at on that. If it's early days, you're talking funnels because you love your products. I would say you want to truncate your learning curve to growing faster or being more profitable. Is stop falling in love with what you do or your products. Fall in love with your clients and find a way to add more value. And I've absolutely mastered workshops. There is no human being alive that's done more or been more successful around workshops. Think like webinars where you're being talked at in a monologue, but imagine it being a small group of just 12. And instead of being talked at, you're having an intelligent dialogue and a conversation back and forth. And instead of it being free, you pay to participate. But if the guy sucks and it's not a great event, they get their money back. So there's no real fear there. And so that's what I'm talking about. I've mastered. And so in the funnel, I just kept thinking, how do I add more value? How do I add more value? How do I find a way to make them go, wow? And literally, and every single workshop to where they pay $250 and they say it's worth millions. So I don't care what kind of human being you are. If you paid $250 and you're saying auditorily out loud to everybody, this was worth 2 million, 10 million, 5 million of profitability. There's no way that person's going to ask you, hey, how can you help us even further? That just changes it from what do I got to say and do? And what's my anchor and my techniques to get people to buy more stuff and funnel. Like it's, so I don't mind using the words like funnels. I just want to make sure everyone knows intent. Motives matter. If you could find a way to love on your people more, you'll find the holes in your bucket. It usually takes getting a coach like Jeremy to point to where your holes are at, because you just unknowingly ignored certain segments to your funnel that are causing you to go broke.
I love that you touched on the value part there, Ted. During the writing process of my book, I had a lot of beta readers reading earlier manuscripts, giving feedback, really good iterative process to get all the problems out of the way before publication versus after, right? And one of the things that would come up when I'd be talking about different strategies in the playbook was the sort of feedback of like, it seems salesy or gimmicky or this and that for a few of them. And I realized that I just hadn't framed the strategy right. The idea is always providing more value, right? It's not just arbitrarily increasing your prices or arbitrarily adding in a higher priced, offering or a lower price or a different product, right? You have to add value first, and that's worth something. And as soon as I made that tweak in terms of how I framed some of the strategies, the feedback flipped on its head. So we've seen it, you and I both in our businesses and with the clients firsthand, lead with value, and it's a true win-win.
It's always a win-win.
So before we wrap, I have so much more. You and I could talk for like hours more on this, but I'm again looking at value. I'm like, what's most valuable for our listeners? So recurring revenue. Many of your businesses have had a component of recurring revenue, which, as you and I know, the enemy of that is churn, right? As soon as you lose a recurring revenue customer, like that is not a good thing. So reducing churn is vital for customer lifetime value. What are some of the things you did to help reduce churn or keep your recurring revenue customers long?
Get curious. Seek to understand. Do not go justify and defend. Everybody wants to justify and defend when someone's canceling on you. Someone's quitting, and then suddenly they're trying to remind them what they've done for them lately. Get curious so you can find out how you failed to let them know what you've done for them lately, which is often the case. Like in my space, coaches, if there's other coaches that come to me saying, hey, what's going on? And they're talking about their churn, they're just really poor marketers. They are not documenting what they've done for them lately. They're doing all these great things, and decision makers are high Ds. They're just making quick decisions. And if they're not being reminded what you've done lately, like, yeah, I think this coaching thing's ran its course. I think we're done now. And then because the problem is you quit something like coaching, you don't really catch the feedback for several months. Like it's a downstream effect, and they probably will never be able to connect the dots. So yeah, great questions, by the way. Absolutely fantastic questions. I like how you keep probing into it.
I've always been curious, so thank you for indulging my curiosity.
Get curious is the answer. So if you got lost in all the words I just said, when you've got churn, genuinely seek to understand their world, walk a mile in their shoes, unconditionally accept it, unconditionally love the circumstance that it's in, so you can then thoroughly comprehend what they just went through. And from that perspective, not your point of view, but that true perspective, as if you were them, then you can solve all those leaky buckets. Or if the churn is inappropriate, if you're really good, churn's inevitable to some degree. You're just probably trying to, stop trying to squeeze lemons in the lemonade if you're just that great. But those are rare.
It's rare. There's usually, it's usually fairly solvable to a certain extent. So good. All right. Rapid fire round before we wrap up. All right. So based on your experience from being stuck in a niche to successfully helping business owners double the size of their company in 12 months, like what's, one concise piece of advice you give to business owners feeling stuck or facing a plateau, especially like those at that $1 to $2 million mark that you mentioned, like where they often get stuck?
Oh, for the $1 to $2 million mark?
Well, you've mentioned having some specialty in that space. We can open that up to, business owners feeling stuck. What would you recommend for them to get unstuck?
Rapid fire is at their early years. It's like, hey, invest in yourself and make sure you're getting clients. If you're growing fast and passions are high, why are you trying to scale? Because people use the word scale all the time inappropriately. Growing is one thing. Scaling is another. Do you really want to scale? Growth is fun. Scales can suck. And are you really wanting that? So get really honest with yourself. So know thyself will set you free. Be honest about what stage you're in. So am I pulling the lever that's most relevant based on where I'm at? Do I really need policies? Are you reading someone's book about policing everything and creating policies and you're at 1 to 2 million? Are you freaking crazy? It takes time and it takes money for you to reinforce policies. And now you come across like the man and you're wondering why your newest, your aunt or uncle you got working for you for damn near free isn't fired up and pumped up as you are. So you've got to know, like, there's a time and a place for certain proven models. Know thyself will set you free.
Okay, one more rapid fire for you. All right. In my book, I stress the importance of regularly tracking funnel statistics and key performance indicators. You and I touched on KPIs earlier. What KPIs do you look at to measure the effectiveness of the different tests and experiments you do in the business? Like, what are some of your favorite KPIs for you?
We act like we don't have an ego, but it's there. We try to use it in the greatest degree of service. But raving fans, like, what percentage of my clients are raving fans? Not just happy clients, but raving. That, if you can get there, everything changes, because you're going to be overwhelmed consistently with, thank you, you've changed my life. Your cell phone blowing up saying, I just got offered 50x EBITDA. I'm going to sell. That's a net after the money I've taken off the table. It's $85 million plus by 45 years old. So that, I like that. That's pretty cool. Raving fans, my favorite.
This has been awesome, Ted. So to recap for our listeners, you found a niche, but then tapped out the market. Doing more of the same wasn't helping. You got stuck, and had you not changed, your business would have run into the ground like so many businesses do, and you'd be stuck back on the road singing for supper. The key to getting unstuck was casting a wider net, increasing your pricing, and patching the leaky funnel. This brought in more customers, higher Q, like we talk about in the book, and increased your gross sales, higher A, and your profitability. I love it. So for our listeners, Ted, who want to learn more about you, where should they go right now?
The LinkedIn. Follow me. I mean, I'm liking LinkedIn as a place that you can actually have real business conversations. So yeah, come hit me up there.
Love it. Well, you'll find the link in the show notes to Ted over on LinkedIn. He's Ted Miller03. If you look by username there. Ted, this has been so fun. Thank you for joining me and for being on the show and for sharing so much of your wisdom.
Catch you guys on the flip side. See you soon.